There was a time when James Franco was everywhere. Oscar nominations, blockbuster roles, and comedies that turned him into a household name. And standing right beside him through it all was Seth Rogen, his co-star, collaborator, and best friend. Together, they built one of Hollywood's most iconic partnerships. From Pineapple Express to This Is the End, their mix of chaos and comedy made millions laugh and millions of dollars. They weren't just co-stars, they were inseparable. A duo audiences could always count on. But Hollywood can turn overnight. What started as minor controversies around Franco grew into lawsuits, allegations, and headlines that no one could ignore. And when the storm became too big, Seth Rogen, the man who had always stood by his side, finally walked away. So what really happened? Did Seth betray his best friend, or was cutting ties the only way to survive? The truth, like their friendship, is complicated. James Franco's career was built on unpredictability. In 2001, he stunned critics playing James Dean in a biopic, earning a Golden Globe. Just a few years later, he was swinging through New York as Harry Osborn in Sam Raimi's Spider-Man trilogy, a billion-dollar franchise that made him a household name. But Franco wasn't content with blockbusters. He took on experimental projects, studied filmmaking at multiple universities, and even wrote novels. By 2010, his performance in 127 Hours earned him an Academy Award nomination. Franco had proven he could balance both Hollywood spectacle and serious artistry. This versatility fascinated audiences. Franco could be a leading man one moment and a comedic disaster the next. He wasn't easy to define, and that was the appeal. But behind the chaos, one thing was constant: Seth Rogen. Their story began on the cult TV series Freaks and Geeks. The show only lasted one season, but it launched careers. Seth Rogen, the awkward Canadian teen with a sarcastic wit. James Franco, the moody bad boy with undeniable charm. They clicked instantly. Off-screen, they became friends. On-screen, their chemistry was undeniable. Over the years, that bond turned into a creative partnership that reshaped modern comedy. Together, they made Pineapple Express, a stoner action comedy that became a cult classic. This Is the End, where they hilariously played themselves during the apocalypse, pulled in over $120 million worldwide, and then came The Interview, a film so controversial it triggered an international incident with North Korea. When hackers linked to the regime, leaked Sony emails, and threatened theaters, the film nearly collapsed. But Franco and Rogen stood together, joking through the chaos and defending their art. That moment cemented their reputation. These two weren't afraid of controversy. They embraced it. Audiences loved them as a package deal. They weren't just colleagues, they were best friends who seemed inseparable. Or at least that's how it looked. The first major crack came in 2014. A 17-year-old Scottish girl met Franco after one of his Broadway performances. She posted a selfie with him on Instagram, and to her shock, Franco slid into her DMs. The messages quickly turned uncomfortable. He asked where she was staying, whether she had a boyfriend, even suggesting he book a hotel room. When she pressed him to prove it was really him, Franco sent a selfie holding her name written on paper. She leaked the conversation and the internet erupted. Legally, Franco wasn't breaking the law. The age of consent in New York was 17, but morally it was a bad look. Overnight, the charming star became that creepy actor who tried to pick up a teenager online. Instead of derailing his career, the scandal was turned into comedy. Seth Rogen made fun of it in an SNL monologue, joking about catfishing Franco.
I decided to prank James Franco. I posed as a girl on Instagram. Told him I was way young. He seemed unfazed. I have a date to meet him at the Ace Hotel.
For the first time, people started asking, is James Franco really who we think he is?
I guess I'm just a model of, how social media is tricky. It's a way people meet each other today. But what I've learned, I guess just because I'm new to it, it's like you don't know who's on the other end. So I use bad judgment, and I learned my lesson.
By 2018, Franco seemed to have recovered. He was on top again. That year, he walked the Golden Globe's red carpet wearing a black Time's Up pin, a symbol of solidarity with victims of harassment in Hollywood. That night, he won Best Actor for The Disaster Artist, a film he directed and starred in based on the cult classic The Room. On the surface, it was the defining moment of his career, but to others, it looked like hypocrisy. Actress Ali Sheedy tweeted during the ceremony, "James Franco just won. Please never ask me why I left the film/TV business. She wasn't the only one. Almost immediately, women began sharing stories online, hints of inappropriate behavior, unsettling experiences, and unspoken truths about Franco. And just like that, the narrative shifted. Franco wasn't a triumphant underdog anymore. He was a man with shadows lurking behind the spotlight. Days later, the Los Angeles Times dropped a bombshell article. 5 women came forward, many of them former students at Franco's Studio 4 acting school. Their stories were eerily similar. Pressure to appear in nude or sexual scenes, being misled about the purpose of educational projects, promises of career opportunities that blurred into manipulation. One accuser, Sarah Tither Kaplan, claimed she was asked to participate in an unscripted orgy scene where protective guards were removed. Another woman described feeling like she couldn't say no because of Franco's power in the industry. Franco went on late-night shows to defend himself. He denied the accusations, but carefully added that he supported women coming forward. To some, it looked like accountability. To others, damage control. But one thing was clear. Franco's reputation was cracking, and people began looking at Seth Rogen. Would he stand by Franco again? When asked in 2018 whether the allegations changed his view, Seth didn't hesitate. He said yes, he'd still work with Franco, but his tone was cautious. "My perspective is the least relevant," he said. "I'm friends with these people, and that makes me the last person who should be talking about this." It wasn't a defense. It wasn't condemnation either. It was neutrality, the middle ground between loyalty and self-preservation. Some praised him for standing by his friend. Others criticized him for dodging the issue. But for the moment, the partnership remained intact. Still, behind the scenes, the storm was only getting worse. In 2019, the accusations escalated into legal action. 2 former Studio 4 students filed a lawsuit against Franco and his partners. They claimed the school wasn't just an acting academy, it was a trap, designed to funnel young women into sexually exploitative situations under the guise of education. The allegations were explosive, but Franco's team denied everything. They called the lawsuit ill-informed and insisted the women were seeking publicity. For nearly 2 years, the case dragged on. And then, in 2021, Franco settled for $2.2 million. No admission of guilt, no criminal charges, just a quiet financial agreement. It was the classic Hollywood ending. Not a conviction, not an acquittal, but a settlement. To some, it looked like closure. To others, it was proof that money, not justice, rules in Hollywood. And this time, Seth Rogen stayed silent. That silence didn't last. In May 2021, Seth Rogen gave an interview that shocked fans. "I despise abuse and harassment," he said, "and I will never cover for someone doing it." He admitted regret for joking about Franco's scandal back in 2014. He admitted regret for suggesting in 2018 that he'd still work with him, and then he made it clear, "I haven't worked with him and I don't plan to work with him again." It was quiet, measured, but it was final. After decades of partnership, Seth had cut Franco off completely. For fans, it was unthinkable. The duo that once seemed inseparable was no more. Later that year, Franco finally responded. In an interview, he admitted he had slept with students. He admitted to struggling with addiction and blurring boundaries. But when it came to Seth, he didn't lash out. "I absolutely love Seth Rogen," Franco said. "We worked together for 20 years. We never had a fight, not once. Of course it's hurtful, but I get it. I don't want Seth to have to answer for me anymore." It was a striking moment. For the first time, Franco sounded vulnerable. Not the arrogant actor, not the Hollywood rebel, just a man who had lost everything, including his closest friend. But by then it was too late. By 2024, the picture was clear. Seth Rogen reinvented himself. He launched a production company, voiced animated films, and built a creative empire beyond the stoner comedy roles that made him famous. James Franco, on the other hand, faded into indie films and low-profile projects. The Hollywood spotlight no longer followed him. The once inseparable duo had become strangers. What was once one of Hollywood's strongest friendships had dissolved into silence. So, did Seth Rogen betray James Franco, or simply save himself? Some see it as disloyalty, abandoning a best friend when things got tough. Others see it as survival, the only choice once Franco's scandals became impossible to ignore. In the end, maybe it wasn't betrayal or loyalty. Maybe it was Hollywood showing its true face, where friendships thrive in the spotlight but vanish the moment the lights go out.